Nah, 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 nah. Hold the phone. Not today. Call the cops. All right. What what is wrong with you people? You know, it used to be fun to do silly little compare and contrast, and I'm not even going to go back into the archive and listen to Griffin Gaming, hear him out, hear what he has to say, because this motherfucking opinion is garbage, all right? And I'm going to explain why. So if you guys don't know, if you're not in the loop with what's going on, it is a critical data breach of a lot of gameplay, docs, personal information, and future upcoming projects with Insomniac Games. All of the Wolverine gameplay that I can even fathom is out there. Now, I'm not going to show you any of this gameplay. I'm not going to show you any of it because I don't want to get taken down. I don't want to deal with a strike or anything like that. Let's just say that it is floating around on the sites, Reddit. It's floating around there, and we've seen just a small sample of what's going on with some pre-alpha footage. For some weird reason, with people and all of their infinite wisdom, they decided to go back and compare it to everything under the sun and say, well, now X-Men Origins Wolverine, the blueprint for this game, obviously, because clearly they took a blueprint from some of the mechanics involved with Wolverine games and everything like that. I don't know why people simply don't leave it there, but they gotta keep continuing, because now it's like, well, X-Men Origins Wolverine is now better than Insomniac's Wolverine. Okay, but there's one little problem with that. There's one thing that people seem to be forgetting in these numbskull comparisons. Get closer. You ready for it? You ready? You ready? You know what I'm gonna say, right? You have a feeling, you can feel it chill up your spine, right? The X-Men Origins game, X-Men Origins Wolverine Uncaged, that game is out. The Insomniac game isn't. And guess what? And guess what, motherfucker? All we see is pre-alpha footage, meaning that what we saw isn't even relatively done. We're talking about a game that is not going to release until 2026 at best. Where the fuck is the comparison? I can't fucking play Insomniac's Wolverine right now, and I'm nowhere close to playing it. What the fuck are you talking about? You see what I mean? You see why I'm not pressing play on this video? Because you have to be the most idiotic smooth brain of all time to try to fathom and say previous game is better than future game upcoming, because the future game is not even out yet to compare and contrast. So what the fuck are you talking about? We only have like slight gameplay footage at best, and it's relatively unfinished. We still see like Wolverine being thrown all over the place, and some of the animations are not even completed. Like, Jesus Christ. You pseudo intellectuals need to go to a drive-thru, unlatch your brain, put it into a cup, and just completely deliver it to the manager, and maybe they'll put it on ice and set it on fire. Because some of you just sit out there and you suck on your own dick at night, and you think you're so intelligent when you really don't know a goddamn thing. Shut up. Just shut up. Stop. End all this apple and orange comparisons forever, because you're not making it make any distinctive sense whatsoever. On a surface level, you're comparing gameplay. That's fine, but saying that one game is better than the other one and the other game has not released yet, you're completely out of your fucking mind. Come on, like, just walk with me, talk with me, people. What validates this guy to make him correct in his assessment? He's comparing an unreleased game to a released game. I'll say it again, he is comparing an unreleased product to a released, finished product. Make remote motherfucking sense to me. I'm about to come out here like Wolverine fucking say I'm the best in the world, put a motherfucking claw in someone's appendix because they're not learning today. Where's the learning involved with anything? Oh, I forgot, you barely went past a third grade education. You don't know any better. You don't know your own anus from a hole in the ground. That's how smart you are. That's what we're dealing with here. That's what we're talking about today. There's nothing to really compare and contrast on, nothing but a surface level. We need to play to understand the deeper depths of the mechanics and the gameplay involved, you complete moron. Let's continue. Like, we got more of this on X. And you know, X needs a fucking IQ limit. I bet like 90% of the population on there would not pass if that was true. But here we go, like, Medster, right? Still gonna play the shit out of Wolverine, but I'd be lying if I didn't get this feeling of sameness after seeing some of that leak footage. And here he has the ring around the rosy of Spider-Man, Horizon, Wolverine, Ghost of Tsushima, God of War, Last of Us, and Uncharted. And I'm just like, knuckle-dragging mouth breathers, failing to come up with anything pertinent past third-person camera angles and cinematics to say all of these games are the same. But Wolverine is just God of War. Wolverine is just X-Men Origins Wolverine. This motherfucker is faster than Kratos. Clearly a difference exists. The fuck are you talking about? And you know, it's quite hilarious that people are saying, oh, now Wolverine is a God of War clone. You know what's the best God of War clone right there on the market that was an X-Men game? X-Men Origins Wolverine, because people saw that as the quintessential blueprint for a Wolverine game. Do you see what I'm talking about? Do you see exactly what I'm referring to when I say this? Now, comparisons of Wolverine being a God of War clone is now subjected to be terrible when the best Wolverine game is a God of War clone. Like, make it make sense, because it's not making sense. Again, like I said, what do all of these games have in common? At least you can say they have third-person camera angles and they are cinematic games. That's where the comparisons die. That's where all of this Sony blueprint bullshit, that's where it finally dies. Spider-Man 2 couldn't play differently than an Uncharted. Uncharted couldn't play differently than Wolverine. Ghost of Tsushima couldn't play any different than God of War. Horizon couldn't play any different than The Last of Us. When you finally understand and catch a grasp on everything, you know why that is? You know why these are so different? Do you know why these arguments are so bad? It's because people tend to forget the contrast when it comes to compare and contrast. I'll tell you an example. The Last of Us is a third-person survival shooter where resources are paramount, bullets are sparse, and you need to survive. While it does share a lot of similarities with Uncharted. Uncharted is more of a bombastic action game. Nathan Drake on ropes and shit, jumping on people, having a good old time, and you can get on a rope in The Last of Us Part 2, but it's not used to jump on enemies or anything of that nature. There is like above the air kill attacks that you could do while jumping and shit like that, but still, you're more of a larger than life action hero for Uncharted, and The Last of Us is just survival mechanics grounded with those third-person elements and gruesome deaths and animations, whereas Uncharted is having a hell of a time, right? Spider-Man 2, it is an open-world action-adventure superhero game where you're using like tendrils and symbiote tendrils to hit people, and you're doing it. They have the whole Rage of the Gods thing where you press the symbiote surge buttons with L3 and R3 and you start going to work on people, but there's also gadgets you could use, stuff pertaining to Spider-Man's web abilities, yanking people up, fucking just doing all these crazy air combos and moves that some of these games definitely don't have air combos, but okay. When you start comparing and contrasting, people forget the contrast part. Horizon Zero Dawn, killing a bunch of fucking big robotic things, tearing off their little robotic ligaments and taking control of robots and using them to your advantage to basically kill all the enemies. Some of these games you can't take control of opponents and whisk them on the battlefield, right? Ghost of Tsushima, a samurai action game where you're fucking dodging arrows and slapping them out of midair, and fucking you got these enemies with spears and you do these differing water stances. Like, some of these games don't have differing fighting stances. It gets deeper. It gets way deeper. Guess what? Because I played these games, I can actually validate the contrast part, and some of you don't, which makes you, I don't know why people don't get that. They leave that off the table. Clearly there is a difference, and it's going to be more prevalent when Wolverine finally releases. And I gotta say, I'm gonna pause it on this part, but I saw one of the worst takes known to man. I'm gonna see if I can find it. Let me pause my recording real quick. Oh, I found the take. I found it. Just as a synopsis. So David Hayter says, don't post stolen art or unfinished art. Please don't post it. It's not right. It's not right. That's what he simply says, right? And then this guy comes in with bad take, dude. Just like The Last of Us Part 2 leaks, we need these heroes to leak to the public eye to show how shit a game is going to be. If the game is whatever the fuck he's saying, good people will buy it and play it even if the story is leaked. It's only shit games like The Last of Us Part 2, Suicide Squad, and this Wolverine game that care about leaks because they lose potential victims from buying their shit products. And it comes down to a thing of this. You know, those Last of Us Part 2 leaks, you know, some of them were right and wrong at the same time. The crippling damage of trying to ruin someone's reputation and post story leaks and post things out of context. You know, when a game or a movie is leaked and there's out of context leaks and it sounds worse off than what it is. Why do people act like that doesn't exist and that's not a reputation damager? Because then it's like, well, since you don't have the full context of what's going on, despite whatever you think of the story, you make it sound worse than what it is. Remember when Endgame leaked and people were like, oh, there's shit time travel and there's no cohesion or fan service or good shit at the end, and it just sounded really shit when it leaked, right? And then when it comes out and you see, oh, well, you know, I don't agree with all the story beats and how it was done, but at least it culminated like 10 years of the MCU, and it felt really good when you got to that final bit and you saw all the fan service at the end, which is a theater experience that can't be replicated whatsoever. You saw that at the end and it paid off. It paid off, right? That's the most important bit, that it paid off. Last of Us Part 2 is like, okay, now there is a transgender character that killed off Joel Miller and Ellie. And you do play as Abby throughout like half of the game. That part was real, but you got the trans part wedged in there, right? You got the Ellie death wedged in there, right? Which is untrue. It's untrue. It's falsified information. Sometimes it is, just to make some people feel good about simply trying to damage what the game has put out there, like 4chaners. I don't believe anything until I have that full moment-to-moment story and moment-to-moment gameplay. For Wolverine, like, how do we know it's shit? How do we know? What validates that? For what you've seen? For gameplay you haven't touched? For a game that's coming out in 2026? This is why pre-alpha content or content like this leaking is bad, because people will run with preconceived notions and their notions aren't always correct 100% of the time. And some people just also do it for clout. They do it for a payday. They do it for a paycheck. You channels out there, you fucking grifter channels out there, you don't think I'd be noticing, like, you say the worst offensive shit, right? You say the worst. And then sometimes when the game launches and you see the significant story beats and you see the significant gameplay that they're doing, like, that starts to dissipate sometimes, because when someone says something is mere dog shit and it really isn't, it turns out to be okay, or it turns out, okay, in context they did this, that, and the third, and the least just made it sound worse than what it is, then yes, that opinion can be challenged, because the person actually played the game versus the person that didn't. You can challenge that. It can be challenged. And you have like Greg Miller, jumping on a soapbox. Let me see if I can find that one, saying that he's not going to talk about the Insomniac leaks because of human conditioning or whatnot. And I have to call him out too. Greg Miller, you have a costume featured in Spider-Man, Marvel Spider-Man, the whole naked Peter thing with the boxers or everything like that, and he's like fucking just, he got his 2 spider sacks out when exploring the city. They put that costume in there because of you. So you have deep ties to Insomniac, and what makes it different when it comes to talking about other developers that had their games leaked, like Rockstar. I'm pretty sure Kinda Funny talked about the GTA leak. They talked about the Capcom data leak, even the Xbox hardware stuff and the stuff that Phil Spencer had out. And you had this guy on your show, right? You don't care about him to not talk about all that stuff there, but you had him on your show. And I'm just saying, like, I had a curious question, but I'm sure you guys are getting grilled for it. Do you talk about human conditioning and you get on your soapbox with every company whose leaks you talk about? Now, like I said before, I'm very conscious of what I spoil, and I let people know ahead of time what I'm talking about on these videos. Like, if you don't want to be spoiled, I tell you in advance, and I don't put it in the fucking thumbnail like Broken Games HD when he did that shit for fucking Evil Within 2. Oh, I spoiled the final boss. It's the same as the devil in Cuphead. It's the exact same, even though the devil is revealed in the beginning and we know nothing about Myra, Sebastian's wife. We know nothing about her until the end of the game. You have smooth brains like that don't make a lick of fucking sense, right? I am conscious enough to give you a vague, nondescript thumbnail and tell you we will be talking about leaks. It will be presented here, but look, I understand leaks are 100% crippling to a company, and I do feel bad for the humans. I feel bad for Insomniac. But it's apparent you don't care about other people when you talk about other leaks out in the open and you don't give those fucking warnings. It's funny. You get on your soapbox, but you don't have the same concern or energy for the other developers who you talked about their leak game, because you just want those hits and clicks just like everybody else, and you know it. Like gaming media, oh, we're not gonna report on the Insomniac leaks because those are a malicious breach of privacy and invasion. It's not fair to the developers and their hard work. We want to protect those beloved developers. And then for Rockstar, Capcom, and other devs, you don't care. Come on, man. Come on. At least make it make sense. Every time pre-alpha comes out and we see gameplay, it's a fiasco of opinions. It is really, really bad. And we have to come to terms and understand, number one, if you compare, there's compare and contrast. Don't forget that last part. And if you get on a soapbox and talk about, oh, well, the human condition and we feel bad for the developers and we're not going to talk about leaks, be sure to feel that way and keep that same consistent energy with every other company that you talk about. Like I said, it was a long time before I discussed the Capcom data leak, but when I eventually opened up to the fact, I let people know I feel bad for Capcom. I do. And I wish it was another way that these things were revealed, particularly by them. At the same time, if you don't want to be spoiled, I keep that known. I'm very conscious about that. I'm very conscious about the stuff I put out on my timeline for something that's relatively new. I give it a while and then I start discussing. But I let people know. Sometimes I keep it regulated to YouTube videos. Some people just don't care about blabbing out leaks at all. They don't. They don't give a shit. They pretend to give a shit, but they don't give a shit. And that's the problem. We gotta stop judging pre-alpha as if it is the completed game. We gotta stop having story leaks taken out of context and we see this one particular part and we don't know how things are gonna play out at all. Like your predictions could be completely wrong. You might be seeing like 20% of the story, maybe 10. And you take it out of context and you roll with it, and then when launch comes around, you look like a flaming dumbass. It's like, oh, well, you know, this whole thing was gonna happen the way I planned out the whole time. Oh no, it turns another direction, and then you might have a bare skeleton, a bare notion of what the plot was going to be, and they take a twist. And then it turns out it wasn't really what you predicted in the first place. That's gotta stop too. Stop assessing things at face value immediately, because sometimes you can end up being flat out wrong about the story details. We need to learn, we need to assess properly at launch, and we need to do better about a lot of these things going on. Your criticism sucks forever when it comes to pre-alpha, compare and contrast, and being on this moral high horse about leaks when you don't care about other devs. This is Renegade Operative. I'm signing out. Do better, and I'll see you guys next time. Later.